I printed it on the good paper, bound it with a black clip spine, tabbed every section, projected costs, supplier contacts, 6-month revenue estimates. On the inside cover, I had penciled a small logo, nothing elaborate, just the name in clean, even lettering. Callaway & Co. I set it beside his dinner plate at 6:47 p.m. Derek read 3 pages. I stood at the counter with both hands around my mug, not drinking, just watching him the way you watch someone handle something you made with your hands. When he closed it, gently, the way you close something you've already decided isn't worth finishing, he looked up and smiled. The kind smile, that was always the hardest kind. Nora, just my name first. Then, this is a lot of work for a hobby. I didn't say anything. I looked down at my mug. The tea had gone cold. I was in the hallway later when I heard him on the phone. His voice was relaxed, the easy, unguarded voice he used with people he didn't have to manage. Nora wants to open a little cookie shop. A pause, then laughter, his and someone else's, layered together through the receiver. Can you imagine? I stood very still in the hallway for a moment. Then I walked to the kitchen, opened the cabinet, and poured the cold tea down the drain. On the counter sat my other notebook, the old one. Leather cover, worn soft at the corners. 11 years of recipes, margin notes, ideas I'd written down at odd hours and never shown anyone. I picked it up, held it for a moment. Then I set it down and didn't open it. Not that night. The attorney's office smelled like cold air and carpet cleaner. I had made the appointment myself 3 days after the phone call. Told no one. Not my sister, not Claire, not the friend who would have cried and made it about comfort before I was ready for comfort. I just found a name, made a call, and wrote the address in the back of the leather notebook, the only new thing I'd written in it in weeks. Her name was Patricia Osai. She had a firm handshake and didn't offer unnecessary sympathy, which I appreciated more than I could explain. She asked me the standard questions: assets, property, timeline, children's ages. I answered each one the way I'd been answering difficult questions my whole marriage, carefully, completely, without editorializing. Then she asked about finances. I told her about the account. My mother had left it to me 31 months ago, $31,000, transferred directly into an account in my name alone. Derek had asked about it once, early on. I'd told him it was gone. He hadn't asked again. Men who aren't paying close attention rarely do. Patricia made a note. Separate property, she said, almost to herself. Pre-existing, non-commingled. She looked up. This is yours, cleanly. I nodded. I had known that. I just needed to hear it from someone in a position to make it matter. At the end of the meeting, Patricia looked at me across the desk. Do you have somewhere to go after this, after the filing? Yes, I said. She waited, pen hovering. I didn't elaborate. I just picked up the leather notebook from my lap, slid it into my bag and stood. I already had the address. The kitchen was not what anyone would call promising. Second-hand equipment, fluorescent lighting, a prep counter that needed resurfacing, a folding table near the door where the landlord had laid out the lease papers like he wasn't entirely sure I'd go through with it. I sat down and signed without reading it a second time. I had read it 4 times at home, alone, with a dictionary open and a pen marking margins. By the time I arrived, there was nothing left to hesitate over. My hand moved across the signature line without interruption, steady in the way I had learned to be steady, quietly, over many years of having no one to catch me if I wasn't. I brought 2 things from home that first morning. The leather notebook, which I set open on the prep counter, not to any particular page, just open. And my mother's rolling pin, worn smooth at the handles, slightly heavier than modern ones. She had used it for 40 years. I set it beside the notebook and stood in the silence for a moment, the particular silence of a space where nothing has happened yet, where everything is still possible because nothing has been tried. Then I got to work. The croissant dough had been laminated and rested overnight. At 5 a.m., I filmed myself working it, just my hands, the layers opening, steam rising when the first tray came out of the oven. 40 seconds. No music, no caption, no explanation. I posted it, set my phone face down on the counter. I didn't check it for 3 hours. When I finally reached for it, I paused with my hand flat on the back of it, just one breath before I turned it over. 6 months is not a long time to build something. It is a very long time to doubt one. There had been mornings in the middle where I arrived at 4 a.m. and stood at the prep counter without moving. Not frozen. Just listening to the silence of the kitchen, asking it quietly whether I had read myself correctly. Saturday mornings had a way of answering. By 7, the line was at the door. By 8, it was past the dry cleaner next door. By 8:30, it curved around the corner, steady, patient, unhurried. I worked the counter without looking up. There was no time to look up. That itself felt like an answer. Claire arrived at 9. She filmed from the window where the morning light came in at its cleanest angle, just my hands first, then wider. I didn't know she had turned the camera toward my face until I watched it back that evening. I had to look twice. I was mid-motion, both hands working, and my face was still, not performing, not managing, not braced for something, just present in the way I had forgotten I was capable of being present. The leather notebook was open on the shelf behind me, spine cracked, pages soft with use. I watched that clip 3 times before I set the phone down. Then it lit up again. A photo, no message, shot from across the street, slightly elevated. The bakery front, the line, the window. I knew the angle. I knew what car would be parked at that distance. I knew the license plate, without having to enlarge the image. I set the phone on the shelf above the counter, face down, next to my mother's rolling pin. And I went back to work. He came on a Tuesday. Not a Saturday, which told me everything. Saturdays were crowded, anonymous, easy to explain away. A Tuesday morning meant a deliberate drive to a specific address to witness something he could not stop thinking about. I felt him before Claire said anything. There is a particular pressure to being watched by someone who once mistook your patience for permission. I felt it at 9:14 a.m., scoring the tops of the sourdough loaves, clean lines, even spacing, and I did not look up. I kept my eyes on the blade. Let it do the work. The way my mother always said. Claire appeared at my elbow. She touched my arm once and tilted her head toward the window without speaking. I looked down at the sourdough. "Does he need something?" I said. She pressed her lips together, went back to the register. The bakery was full, every table. The display case nearly empty by 9 a.m., which still surprised me, not because I doubted the work, but because there is a particular kind of surprise that lives on the other side of being told you are not enough. It doesn't feel like triumph. It feels quieter than that. It feels like finally being able to exhale a breath you held for so long you forgot it wasn't normal to hold it. I don't know how long he stood there. I was busy. When Claire asked me later, after the last customer, after the display case was wiped clean, after the closed sign had been turned, I was wrapping the final sourdough loaf in parchment paper. I smoothed each fold slowly, the way you finish things you care about. "Did you see him?" she asked. I set the loaf down, picked up the leather notebook from the counter, soft at the corners, pages thick with 11 years of everything I had been told was too much, too late, too small. I opened it to the first blank page I could find. "See who," I said. And I began to write. If you have ever been told that your dream had an expiration date, that you were too old, too quiet, too far behind, I want you to sit with Nora for a moment. She didn't argue. She didn't perform her pain for anyone's validation. She simply decided that the most elegant response to being underestimated was to become undeniable. The notebook is still open. The page is not finished. Neither is she. If this story stayed with you, share it with the woman in your life who is still holding her breath. She may need to hear that the window is not closed. It was never closed. She just hadn't opened it yet. Nora never argued. She never explained herself. She never asked for an apology. She just became undeniable. Here is my question for you. What dream have you been quietly talking yourself out of because someone laughed at it first? Drop it below. This comment section is a safe place. And if you're ready to keep the notebook open, hit subscribe. We aren't finished yet.